Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you so much for your time and welcome to another session on Programming Language Part 3. So far, we have covered the fundamentals and the different processes involved in programming. And we started off looking at how to comment. And today, we are entering a very important topic of installation for programming languages. We will have a look at the environment setup, the installation, what are the tools needed, and the steps, that is to compile code and run or execute the code. First, when you are learning the language, you actually do not need any tools to learn. For example, as a kid, you would have started learning your mother tongue by just watching your parents or your siblings or your relations, and you just learn by watching. But you still go to school and learn through some books. But I focus on learning the programming from the simplest tool, that is with a notepad, or you write the code of the algorithm inside your notepad or a piece of paper and a pen. And then you start executing the code using the corresponding compiler for the language. But in real world, where things are pretty hectic, you might have to write big projects. In that case, we might have to make use of very powerful tools like Visual Studio, Eclipse, NetBeans, Dreamweaver, etc. And you might have to spend some time to learn about those tools also. Yet there are various advantages of working with those tools. They add light and color and beauty to your work of coding. For example, the text editor has syntax coloring. You have the autocomplete feature by which you don't have to remember the entire name. And you have the indexer, the doc viewer are the code templates through which you put some shortcuts like Ctrl J and the entire code is displayed. This is very handy when working in real world environment where you don't want to waste your time typing the entire code. You just have to, for example, you just have to press get-d and press a tab and get-d is displayed. And or using the autocomplete feature, you can see select from a drop down and display the results. This is a simple IDE in Windows PowerShell, which you can easily launch from Windows. I'll just open up a new window. So these are the different windows through which you can type your programs. And the beauty is you have the line numbers displayed as and when you type the code. Also, in any integrated environment, you will definitely have a file tab through which you can open a new file, save a new file, and also update the file and run the command. Please note that whichever tool you use, make it a point to save your work. This comes very handy, especially with powerful tools like Visual Studio, which sometimes closes without any warning or error. So just please ensure that you save your work as and when you type, whatever tool it is. Even if it's Notepad, please make sure you use the Control S feature. And as usual, we have the Control C, Control V, and the cut, copy, paste tools in any code, in any IDE. And the most important command is the F5 or the run command through which you can run the command. So this is what will actually compile the command. And so we have other tools, other options through which you can view the script pane. You can go to the console pane where the output is displayed. And each tool will have its own unique set of properties. So in some tools, you would have to open up a new project and you would definitely have an option to build and then deploy or run the project. So in any program, what are the components? So this is a sample example of a C# program. You will definitely have a library through which the whatever methods you want to access, you can access. Apart from that, if it's not available, you will be writing your own function. So in any programming language, definitely you will have a function to print the output in the output window. It may be printf or console.writeline or just put it in double quotes as in PowerShell. So first thing, in any real world programming language, you would be using, in this example, it is using system, or in C, it is include stdio.h. It depends. So for one common thing is you might have to import the library through which you can access the methods. After that, you have the namespace which is specific to your name or your organization. Ensure that whatever you write is published in GitHub or in your own blog through which you can access later in your life or can help others throughout the world. And after that, you have the class. In any programming language, you can have one common class or mini class, and you have interfaces, structures as per your programming needs or your business needs. And most programming languages will definitely have one main method, which is the starting point of the program. Within that, you will be calling other functions in the order you want. So you have a library. In this example, it is using system, which contains all the namespace and the classes. And inside the program, you have the codes or you have the functions within the main method or other methods as per your needs. So in this example, we are just printing the output, hi there. So what are the steps to do coding? As a simple step, first start off by typing your code in Notepad or Notepad++ or in a piece of paper and put that into your code. Then is to use the compiling tool or whatever tool appropriate to that particular language, compile the code, which will convert the code to the exe or the machine readable format. And finally, you have to run the code. So let's just start with a simple example of my favorite language, C#. Please note that this is common for any programming language, be it, for example, for JavaScript also, you have to install Node.js and then open command prompt and then go to the folder where you have the code and then do a compile that converts into a format which you can see and then view the output. Okay, so for C#, it's good you install Visual Studio. But before that, I have already installed Visual Studio, the community edition, which is a free version. Otherwise, you can install Visual Studio Professional or Visual Studio Enterprise as per the license you have already. And it's always recommended to get the best or the latest version of Visual Studio. Okay, so I've already typed the code in C# in Notepad. So first let's look at the Notepad version and then we'll look at the Visual Studio version. Okay, so I have typed the code in simple Notepad file. But in Notepad, the problem is if you make a spelling mistake, the compiling will not work. So let's just compile. Let's just type this code. I've saved it in as a CS file. Next, I go to Start and I search for my Visual Studio. Not the actual Visual Studio. I search for the folder Visual Studio and then launch the developer command prompt. So the advantage of launching is this: all the environment variables or the path needed for executing C# is automatically loaded. Otherwise, in other programming languages like Java and all, you might have to manually set the environment variables or the path through which you can execute your code. So let's just ensure that we can compile the code using this command called CSC. So now let's go to the folder where I have my code. I put my code in C demo SharePoint CDPL. Over here, I have the code saved as simple.cs. So I'll just type CSC followed by the program name. So usually, depending on the programming language, it can be CSC or CL. For C, it is CL, then simple.c. For C#, it is CSC, simple.cs. Now what happens after this is compiled? It is compiled to a format which we can execute. And I have to simply run the command by giving that name. Simple I type and it displays hello world. Very good. And the output console.read key, which will ask me to just, it will wait for a response and then if I press enter, it is exiting. And also please note that this is just compiling. So let's just try to deliberately make an error. So I'll remove the console.read key. I'll go back and I'll do a clear and I'll try to compile this again. So what happens? Console does not contain a definition for read key. So the purpose of compilation is to ensure that all the syntax errors are rectified. So if you're an expert coder, then Notepad would be fine. But if you're working in heavy projects or if you're new to the programming language, sometimes IDE is really good. So let's open up a simple PowerShell window. Over here, I've written a simple PS1 hello world. Let's also try to put the call the get date function, and I'll try to save the file. Okay. After saving the file, I need to go to the folder where I have the code. So I have saved the file in this C demo SharePoint PL. Now in PS, I'll do a dir and this display. So I'll just try to execute simple.ps1. I'll just put simple.ps1. So in PowerShell, you don't have to call compiling and all. It is a scripting language. So automatically it is compiled and we just have to call the PS1. So there are various tools for working on codes, especially for integrated development environment. Have Visual Studio through which you can work in C# or Visual Basic or C++ or even C. And then if sometimes we might be doing just online development within Chrome or IE where you have good debugging options also. And then we have Notepad++, Sublime Text through which you can code for HTML, CSS or use a Dreamweaver for HTML, CSS. And then we have the Eclipse for Java. And similarly, we have various tools. So please note that the common thing is you just have to get the latest download for the appropriate programming language, install that, and then you have to most probably click File New Project or File New in a new Notepad type of window. You'll type your code, save your work, and then you have to just compile and press F5 or just press F5 and your code is done. So this is the common technique. And apart from that, you might have to add the references to the DLLs or just add the packages. Sometimes rather than installing all the tools, especially for this particular course, I found this site which was pretty useful, through which you can just open this link and execute the code in the language of your choice. So if you're just a learner right now, I would recommend you try this. Otherwise, if you are very specific of a particular language, please install the appropriate tool and work on that. For SQL, you have to install the SQL Server Management Studio through which you can execute SQL commands. So this is a simple SQL Server Management Studio through which you can write the procedures and transactions, or where you can create tables, update tables, delete tables. This is an online IDE I came across which I found was very cool. It's called codechef.com/IDE. Over here you can select any language you like. C, C++, Java, Fortran, Lisp, any language. So let's just try for C#, and we'll do the console dot. Let me search for, you have Google Go also. Let's try for C# now. So let me just type console.writeline. Please note that this is case sensitive, otherwise it will not compile properly. And I have to put the semicolon. So I just click run, which will do the compilation and then run also. So in any IDE, you don't have to separately compile and then run. So this is all taken care of by the IDE and the message is printed here. So apart from C#, you have Google Go, you have Python and many other languages which you can test as per your wish or as per your business needs. Now let's just do the same code with a tool called Visual Studio. So you launch the code from Start All Programs. Whatever tool it is. Now we are trying to. I'll open Visual Studio and click New Project. Let's select Console Application and give the name as Console Application Thangu, whatever your name is, and then select OK. Studio is a very powerful tool. I can take a separate class on that. Please understand that it has a project, the properties, the references, and the CS file where the code is written. I'm typing console.writelines. Look at the IntelliSense feature. Hello. And now let's just build. I'll right click, build. The output is displayed in the output window. There are so many tabs, and if you want to put breakpoint, press F9 or just click here and then press start. It will come here. If you want to step line by line, press F11 or function, press F10. As a best practice, try using Notepad for small functions. For big functions, upload your code into GitHub and MSDN Gallery. Try to use TFS and SVN and have the latest code and version. So we have completed installation. Thank you so